Yes. We are going to record it today. Okay. So tonight we are talking about the affordable lottery process. If you are thinking of buying a home, right, what does that process look like when it pertains to a lottery? Because it's a little bit different than your traditional sale. Okay, so prepare to learn a lot tonight. Please ask questions. We're going to go over the process and kind of what the timelines look like, where to find opportunities, understanding the deed restrictions, and then how to build wealth with these opportunities. Okay. So my name is Denisha McDonald. I am the Executive Director of Financial Education Associates. We are a HUD housing counseling agency. So if you need to take your first-time homebuyers class, we are one of the organizations that can help you receive that certificate. It's valid for the state of Massachusetts. It's valid for 3 years. So you can take the class this year and you know that it won't expire for 3 years. This course makes you eligible for all of the down payment assistance programs and the first-time home buyer programs available statewide. So it's a great class. It's an 8-hour class that prepares you and educates you on the home buying process from A to Z. And then we have counseling sessions to help you guys to make sure you understand kind of what next steps are. Okay. Over the years, so we've been in existence since 2001. We've graduated over 20,000 people so that they can purchase their first home. We are 100% virtual. So we don't have in-person classes right now, but if you'd like to take one of our online homebuyer courses, we encourage you to join us. Okay, so we talked about what we're going to learn today. I want to get right into it. We also have the amazing Miss Sophia Burks of DVM Housing Partners with us tonight. Say hello, Sophia.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Sophia Burks, as Denisha stated. I'm Director of Marketing at DVM Housing Partners. Usually DVM Housing Partners serves as a lottery agent for a lot of the home ownership opportunities within the city of Boston.
Perfect. Awesome. So Sophia is going to be presenting tonight. We're supposed to have the city of Boston. They were unable to make it, so we will go through kind of some of the things you need to know about their process. It's a little bit different than what Sophia's process is. But first, I always like to see what people think home prices are. So in the chat, let me know. How much do you think a 2-bedroom in Boston? Let's start with a 2-bedroom condo. How much do you think a 2-bedroom condo is in Boston? You can put your answer in the chat. How much is a 2-bedroom condo? And I pulled these up recently, like today. So these are real numbers. Okay, I'm seeing 500,000, 650, 899. Okay, so you are all correct, right? Isn't that great? Because there's a range, but we're looking at the medium. So kind of what's the price that we're seeing? The average 2-bedroom in Boston is going for $615,000. Just so you know, those are the ones that have sold, right? And we know depending on where it is, depending on the condition, it could be a little bit higher, it could be a little bit lower, but we're looking at $615,000. So how much do you think a 2-bedroom single family would be? There aren't that many of them, but for the ones that do exist, how much do you think those cost? $725. Yes, some of them are $1 million. So again, you guys are all correct. So the 2-bedroom single families aren't much higher. They're about $631,000. But again, there aren't that many of them. And I would estimate, if I have to pick a guess, that those are probably older homes that still need some updating to them because there aren't that many 2-bedroom single family homes. So looking at what most people want, which is a 3-bedroom, what do you think the price is for a 3-bedroom condo? $1.7, yep. So if you go back there, you're absolutely in those price ranges, yep. And then what do you think the price is for a 3-bedroom single family in Boston? Those are like prized right now. They don't have that many of them. 1.5 million, 750,000. So Miss Lorene, you are correct for the 3-bedroom single family. It is actually $651,000 is the median price for a single family 3-bedroom house in the city of Boston right now. If you're thinking of buying a condo, it's upwards of $630,000. Okay, so we understand all of that to say market rate homes are really expensive right now. So unless you have deep pockets, it's going to be a pricey reach for a lot of people, which isn't a bad thing because there are options, right, that are available to you. But I wanted to give you a perspective in terms of the types of prices that we're seeing in the current market. So when we think about those numbers, I also want people to start thinking of how much you need for a down payment, right? So you have something called down payment, and then you have something called closing costs. Most people only think about the down payment when they're buying a house. They don't think about the closing cost. And that's an additional, depending on your situation, depending on the type of home you're buying, about 2% additional on top of your down payment. So that's a total of 5% that you need. I tell people going into buying a house that you need, okay? So if we just said the average price or the median price of a 2 or 3-bedroom condo or single family in the city of Boston is upwards of 600,000. So it's between 600 and we'll say $800,000, right? Do you guys see my mouse? Yes? Okay. So if we said we need down payment and closing cost, we are looking at, you need to have a minimum of between 30,000 and $40,000 saved to make that a reality if you're looking at market rate homes. And if you don't qualify for any of the down payment assistance programs, right? There are a lot of them out there. Let's say you don't qualify for any of them and you have to come out of pocket the full dollar amount. You're looking at a minimum of about $40,000 that you need to have saved in order to purchase a home. And that seems a little bit daunting for a lot of people. So we have an option. These are called affordable lottery homes. And lottery sounds just like what it is, right? It's pick a number. And that lucky number is the one who gets, or numbers, they go through the list, who gets to advance to see if they can purchase one of the units, right? So those prices are significantly less than what you're seeing for market rate. So for the lottery home, Sophia, if you want to jump in, what are you seeing as the price for some of the lottery homes that are coming up or have passed that are, let's say, 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom condos? Because we don't have a lot of single families.
So I will say no one ever wins the lottery when it
I know
comes
the term,
to
yes.
income restricted home ownership in the city of Boston. Right now, the city has come out with new income limits and price limits as of June 14th, and this information is accessible on the Mayor's Office of Housing website. Right now, so for mostly income restricted home ownership units, there are 2 income tiers. There's an 80% AMI tier and a 100% AMI tier. AMI is area medium income. So this essentially says for a household of 2, in order for you to qualify for the 80% condo units, your household income cannot exceed like $104,000. Sales prices for a 2-bedroom at 80% right now is somewhere between 258, 260,000. For a household whose income may exceed the 80% AMI income tier, but is under 100%, the maximum household income for a household of 2 at the 100% AMI level is 130,000, somewhere around there. And the purchase price for a 2-bedroom condominium at the 100% income tier is roughly around 334, 335,000.
Okay.
And
And if
those,
we were to look at the 3-bedroom at 100% area median income, what are we seeing those sales prices at?
roughly probably about 375, 380, maybe somewhere around there. And again, for a household of 3, area medium income, you cannot exceed 100, I think it's 146,000. for that 100% AMI income tier. For the 80% AMI income tier for a household of 3, you cannot exceed about 118,000. But again, the actual income limits are on the mayor's Office of Housing's website.
Thank you, Sophia, and we'll probably go over that a little bit later. But I wanted her to give you guys an idea of what the sales prices were, right? So we see that they are under that $400,000 range. So they're looking between 300 and 400,000. If you had no down payment assistance at all, that means you need to have about $20,000 saved, right? Which sounds a lot more achievable, right, than looking at the market rate homes. The benefit, if you are buying specifically in the city of Boston, and someone asked that in the chat, if this is only for Boston, we're using Boston numbers for this presentation. Why? Because Boston has the most income restricted homeownership opportunities, so affordable lottery homes. So we're using this as our guide, but again, these lottery homes or income restricted properties are located across the state, right? So we're going to show you guys the link or the website that you can go to find them and apply for them, but we're using Boston numbers, just so you guys have an idea. And Boston is one of the cities that has the most down payment assistance available right now. So utilizing one of the down payment assistance programs and loan products out there, you no longer need that 3% that I was talking about to purchase a home specific to Boston. You would need 1.5% of those funds to be your own, and then the rest of it can be a gift, right? There's a lot of grant money out there right now. City of Boston has 5% in down payment assistance that they are giving away for income eligible buyers. And they also cover your closing costs. So if you are looking in Boston, you can purchase a home with as little as 1.5% down. So if you are trying to purchase one of these income restricted properties, one of these affordable homes, you're looking at about $6,000 that you need to have saved. So you see the difference between the 40,000, then we went to the 20,000. We move across because we start utilizing all of these programs. You need $6,000 to purchase. I tell people, start your goal at 10,000, right? So we go 5, get to 5, and then your next big goal is to get to $10,000. And that gives you enough of a cushion when you're thinking of buying within the city to cover any of the other expenses that come up in the home buying process, okay? Please feel free to ask your questions in the chat. Where applicable, I will integrate them into the presentation so we can go over those as well. Okay, and we can go over some examples, and I'll show you guys live, kind of when you're thinking about what the mortgage would be on some of these homes. We'll go and find them after. I want Sophia to go through her presentation, and those kind of examples, I'll show you on the call what that looks like. So when you're thinking about buying, market rate, looking at sales prices in Boston or anywhere, because now you can do the math, right? You need about 5% of the purchase price. So you have 3% for down payment, 2% for closing costs. So I just did the column. I like to do the math for you guys. Look down the 5% column. Any house that you're scrolling on Zillow, this is to help you figure out how much you need to have saved, right? So if you're looking for a house that's $500,000, you need at least $25,000 saved. If you're looking for houses that are $700,000, you need $35,000 saved. So this is to set some benchmarks and some goals in terms of what these look like. Okay. So when we talk about income restricted properties, before I go there, can you guys put in the chat, what have you heard about affordable lottery homes? Can you guys put in the chat what you've heard about them? Some of the good, some of the bad. What's the rumors in the streets? High crime, bad quality housing, okay. What else have you guys heard about these home ownership opportunities? And the correct term is income restricted home ownership. So Sophia is going to state it that way for you guys. I'm going to say affordable home ownership opportunities. Why? Because they are affordable, right? And affordable does not mean cheap. And I think a lot of times wording is really important, and people, they go, oh, it's affordable, that means it's not great, it's cheap, and that's not true. Okay. Let's see here. Some of the answers we got. Almost impossible to get. You can't sell at market rate. Only well-connected win the lottery. If you don't, wait, hold on. If you don't get a low number, one is locked out. I think there are too many applicants and low chance of being picked. You have to be connected in order to get in. You can't rent for 3 years. Does that mean you can't turn it into a rental? Is what you're saying for that comment? Single people don't have a chance. Okay. So thank you guys for, I see I read all of them in the chat. So thank you for those that apply, well, answer the question specifically. So for the affordables, I'm going to go through, because some of them, someone said you can't sell it for market rate, and that is true. So now let's look at kind of what goes on behind the scenes. What do you guys think makes a unit affordable? So in order for you to be able to purchase it, right? We saw that market rate for a 2-bedroom, I'll use a 3-bedroom, because that's what most people want. For a 3-bedroom condo is about $630,000. But Sophia said what she's seeing for the lottery homes are, they're closer to that $350,000 to $400,000 range, right? So under $400,000. So that's at least a $200,000 difference. Where do you think those funds come from? There we go. So it is made possible through subsidies from the government, sometimes through private entities, people coming together because they believe in the dream that everyone should have access to housing and homeownership opportunities, right? So if the government, or yes, someone else said taxpayers. So when we say government, we all kind of pay into the government, so that is correct as well. If they are putting in $200,000 to make it affordable for you, do you think, and do you believe it is fair that you now get to take all of that money when you sell the house and just say, bye, see ya, thank you? Okay, so to me, personal opinion, I think this is what we call a compromise, right? It's like, I want to make it affordable for you, but in order for us to have long-term sustainability and have Boston or cities continue to be diverse across a range of incomes, we have to put limits and restrictions on things, right? So that's one of the restrictions that they put with deed restricted properties, right? Deed restriction. They don't want you to sell it at market rate, because if you couldn't afford it at $600,000, that means the next person who wants to buy it after you sell, when you decide to sell, they also don't have the 600,000, or it might be worth 8, right? When you decide, they don't have those funds. So they want to restrict it so it's always affordable to people within the same income tier that you were when you qualified for the home. And I don't think that's a bad thing, right? That's a way for them to make sure over the years, more and more people can access homeownership at a price that makes sense for them. But you do get to gain some equity. Why you don't get 100%? So what we saw during COVID was homes, it felt like people bought them for like 5, and then COVID happened, and it's like, okay, that same house is now worth 7. Or they say, I want 8, and you find some buyer who said, yes, I'm willing to pay 8. That's what it felt like during COVID, right? That's not normal. And I think a lot of people, they were tricked into thinking that is normal, right? You do get appreciation where your home goes up in value. It's not normal that it goes up that aggressively, that fast, okay? So a slower pace. And what the city did was they said, we want to put, or all of these entities, a cap on that. So your equity is usually, or they allow your home to increase in value between 3 and 6% annually. Sophia, I'm not sure if you have the number specific for the city of Boston, if it was 3 or 6. I've seen all on different deeds.
I actually do not have.
Okay. I've seen a range, so I'm not sure what it is this year. But I have read through deed restrictions over the years, and I've seen somewhere it's been 3, and I've seen somewhere it's been 6. So just know that you do get to gain some equity perspective in what those numbers look like for past buyers who have sold their properties. They've owned it for about 10 years, and they were able to walk away with around $100,000 in equity. that, after they sold their property. So it's not that you don't gain anything, right? It's just, it may not be what market is. Any questions there? Okay, someone says, if the government partially funds the project, what stops them from taking the home to honor contracts with developers? Well, they don't do that. Once you buy, the beauty of ownership is once it's yours, right? Unless you're not paying and you need to be foreclosed on, right? So as long as you're paying, they can't take your home to give to developers because it's yours. You control that. Okay, so we just dispelled one of the myths. People say you don't get any equity. Well, you do have equity when you sell an income restricted property. It just may not be as much as your neighbor, but you do get to walk away with something. I like to say I could keep renting, and when I leave, I hopefully get my security deposit back. So that's what, $2,000, maybe $3,000, whether I stay there for a year or 10 years. All I'm getting back is my $3,000. Whereas if I purchase one of these deed restricted or income restricted properties, I have the opportunity to receive more back, right? So we talked about, use the example where this family, they sold after 10 years and they're able to get over $100,000 in equity. To me, that's not a bad deal. They didn't get the 200,000 that their neighbor did, but it's better than the 3,000 if I kept renting because I couldn't afford to buy a market rate unit. Hopefully that makes sense. Someone said the property loses value. In the chat, they said it's in a bad area, high crime. No, they build wherever there is land at this point. They're trying to put housing up so that people can afford to live. And I'm a big believer, buildings are not the problem, right? We want to have more people who own in our neighborhoods, who are invested in our neighborhoods so that they take care of it, right? You are a part of that. So when you move into wherever you are, it's how can you be involved in your community? How can you be involved in the association meetings and participating so that you don't have to worry about the crime, right? Because you become part of the solution. Property, if it loses value, that's not a affordable home issue. That's more of a regional or the neighborhood or that area is losing value. So everyone suffers if you see the home values are being lowered. It's not related to a deed restricted property, right? So if everything in the neighborhood, the prices are going up, guess what? You're gaining value and equity in your property every single year. In 2008, everyone lost equity in their home. Why? Because home values went down. That wasn't crime related. That wasn't anything else. That was just economics, what happened at the time, right? So understand that has nothing to do with it being a deed restricted or an income restricted property, okay? Someone said you have to stay in the home, like you can't rent it out. They said, I think 3 years. Correct. If you purchase a deed restricted property, an income restricted property, you cannot rent it out if it is a single family or a condo, right? Because the municipalities, the various cities who offer these properties, they want you to stay there. They want you to be invested in the community and give back, right? They don't want you to take it and let anyone in to rent it, right? They want to stabilize their communities. So one of the restrictions is it needs to be owner occupied. You cannot take it and turn it into a rental property.
So
If you
I'll
want to buy rental,
interject just for one moment.
yes, ma'am.
There is a nuance with that. It all depends on the home ownership opportunity that you're applying for. There are some restrictions where it's required to be owner occupied for X number of years. There are also some opportunities for the owner of the property to then rent out that unit to a qualified income and asset eligible renter, which there's a process that the owner will go through with the Boston Home Center. So it just depends on the particular property. And all of that information is provided to potential buyers prior to them closing on an income restricted property.
Thank you, Sophia.
You're welcome.
And then, so we're talking about if they are condos or single families, there ever so often, one or two may pop up where they build an affordable 2 or 3 family, a multifamily home. That, guess what? You live in one unit and you can rent out the other units, right? But those have income restrictions as well. They don't want to make it affordable to you, and then you try to charge the maximum amount of rent for your tenants. That's not fair, right? It's always a pay it forward mentality is how I like to think about it. So they do want you to be an owner occupant, and the restriction there, it depends. Each project may vary, but for the most part, it is 30 years. And it does not mean you have to live there for 30 years. It just means the restriction is up to 30 years. If you decide to sell after 5, okay, you sell after 5. You can sell after whenever you want to. But the owner occupant restriction, again, it depends. It's up to 30 years, and then the city has the opportunity or the option to extend that. If you're buying outside of Boston, I've seen restrictions where it's 15 years, right? So it's not the full 30 years. So it depends on where you're purchasing. You have to read the condo documents and just learn about what the restrictions are and ask about what they are for the property that you're interested in, because it does vary by municipality and it may differ by development project as well. Okay. Poor quality, someone said that it was a cheap house, it's not good quality. Guess what? You're getting a new construction home. Like, they took their time, they had to pass all the city inspections so that you can purchase that home. So it's not that it's a terrible house, right? And I think what I've seen, I've been working in the affordable homeownership arena for a while. When you buy and I purchased one many years ago, so speaking from experience, when you buy a new house, period, you're going to see a lot of things that come up over time that you don't expect as a first-time home buyer. Why? Because there was dirt, and then one day, tons of house appeared on top of that dirt, and it has to settle, right? So now everything has to get used to the weight of this house, and things do shift. So you might see some cracks, you might see some things happen because it is new construction. They also didn't have an opportunity to live in it and test things out over time. So you might feel some of the, okay, this isn't working properly because it's brand new and you're using it for the first time, right? Does that happen all the time? No, but that doesn't mean it's a poor product. It's just part of the process of buying new construction. Does that make sense? Because that happens with market rate, that happens with affordables. It's just when it's new construction, there are certain things that we expect to happen or that can happen because everything is brand new and it has to kind of work, and through time will get better. Let me go back to the chat to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. Can you live in one of these units? Purchase in another home that is not affordable. So we'll get there. Okay, so the quality of the products, not bad, right? Because they are being intentional. The city has guidelines and standards that they want developers to adhere to. It has to pass inspection. So inspectional services comes in to make sure that these homes that you guys are purchasing it's meeting all code and all standards, okay? Do they check your income every year? So the difference, which I love about affordable or lottery income restricted home ownership versus rentals. With a rental, you guys know they're going to check your income every year. They have to verify to make sure you are under the income limits that Sophia outlined, right? So if the income limit, let's say, was $83,000, what happens if you make $84,000, Sophia, in a rental?
What will happen is you will not get evicted. It just means for the owner of that particular property, that particular unit is not considered an income restricted unit. Typically it's standard practice. And again, it just depends on the affordability restrictions for that particular site. The rent will not increase no more than 3% of the gross rent will not increase no more than 3%. And when you decide to move out, it's the owner's responsibility to fill that unit with someone who falls within the income limits. And that is just for a rental.
So for the rentals, you see that your rental cost can go up because they have to verify you every year. You have to submit the paperwork annually to make sure you're still certified and eligible. For the affordable homeownership opportunities, you just need to do that one time, right? You need to meet the income and asset limits up until the day you close. Once you are on record and that house is yours and you receive those keys, You can win the lottery. You can become a billionaire. You can take every promotion that there is. If you want to work 5 jobs and have 2 side hustles, you could do it because no one is checking your income after you close because you own the property, right? So you just have to make sure you qualify up until the day that you close. And after that, I tell you, go and make as much money as you can. Okay? So before I let Sophia start, actually, I think I want you to talk about it first, and I'll come back to this after we go over the process. Because I want you guys, it's a process. For some people, it can feel daunting because it just takes a while. It just takes a while. I don't know how else to put it. But the most important thing for you is to make sure that you are ready and that you are prepared so that when you get that email, receive that email, or you get that phone call that you're being offered a unit or eligible for a unit, you are ready to go and you make Sophia's job easy so you can go through the process without any hurdles or any obstacles. Okay. So Sophia is going to talk about the process, what it is with DVM Housing Partners, which is similar to a lot of the other lottery agents out there. So pay attention, ask questions in the chat. I will go back over all of these questions to make sure we cover them for you guys, but I want you to listen to kind of what the process is for if you're thinking about applying for a lottery home. And you should have sharing rights, Sophia.
Let's see. All right. Are folks able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I am presenting from the perspective of a lottery agent. Again, I'm with DVM Housing Partners. Glad to accept the invitation to come and speak to the participants as it relates to successfully navigating the affordable home ownership lottery process throughout the city of Boston. Please, please, please ask questions. I'm going to go quickly through the information. But I want everyone to be able to ask questions as it relates to the lottery process, because what I've realized is that the information is out there. It's just not easily accessible. It's not in the places where we are to receive the information. So let me go into my presentation. DVM Housing Partners is located at 35 Bachelor Street in Roxbury. We have been in existence since 2021. The components of our organization is income restricted real estate development within the city of Boston, preferably within Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan. The second line of business within DVM is the affirmative marketing, which I lead for the organization. We are woman-owned, Boston native, locally owned, from 30, 40 years when folks really didn't want to be in Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan. As I said right here, I'm the director of affirmative marketing. Dariella Villamaga is the president and founder of DVM Housing Partners. I have a special projects coordinator, Nakia Jellin, who assists with development as well as the affirmative marketing for our lotteries. And then Samala Dibby is a real estate project executive on the development side. If you have the ability to scan the QR code that's here, it will bring you to our website where you can find out more information about our organization.
And I'll share their information after this. You'll get an email with everything.
All right. So on this slide, I have roles and responsibilities when applying to an income restricted homeownership lottery. Again, I am presenting information from the perspective of a lottery agent. So the main players within my role of the lottery application process is myself as the lottery agent, the applicant, which is you, and then the Boston Home Center. My responsibilities within this process include advertising in neighborhood and local papers, flyering, neighborhoods, reaching out to community organizations where the home ownership opportunity is located to try to tap in to community centers or neighborhood service centers, businesses within the area, to be able to allow them to distribute the information to their patrons or the people that they're serving. We also, as a lottery agent, have direct contact with all of the applicants from the application request period to the point where you sign a purchase and sale agreement, and we'll go into that later on in the presentation. We deem applicants' income and asset eligible to continue moving forward within the lottery process. Lottery agents do not approve or deny applicants. That responsibility is on the Boston Home Center. We gather your income and your asset documentation, review it, make sure you fall within the income and asset limits, make sure you have all the additional required documentation. We sit down with you to review your file so you understand how we came up with the calculations, and then we pass on that file to the Boston Home Center for them to review and approve or deny the file. We also assist with scheduling unit showings once your income and asset determination has been completed. And as I said, we submit to the Boston Home Center for review. As the applicant, your responsibility is to request your application, submit your lottery application, respond to all the correspondence the lottery agent is requesting of you, such as confirming the information that you submitted initially for your lottery application is correct. Giving you information as relates to your application number and your lottery number, requesting additional documentation, sending out invitations to move forward once lottery numbers have been generated and lists are generated that have a lottery ranking, and sorted based on your responses from the lottery application submission period, that you'll do online via Metro List Boston. Applicants are researching lenders during this process, and you guys are applying to the City of Boston's down payment assistance resources. The Boston Home Center applicants really don't. So the Boston Home Center plays two roles. The first role is approving or denying the applicant file to purchase the actual income restricted homeownership unit. The second role of the Boston Home Center is associated with the financial assistance program, where that's the program applicants apply for down payment assistance. So it's two roles. For the lottery agent, our interaction with the Boston Home Center is purely on the reviewing the file to provide a determination of approval or denial to purchase the unit, the selected unit. And then the Boston Home Center also coordinates with mortgage lenders, the buyer, attorneys, in order for buyers to get to an actual closing. So, oh, I think I missed a slide. Oh, no, I didn't. So, homeownership lottery estimated timeline. I have a lot of words here, and I'm going to summarize. As you're looking at this slide, I've tried to section it off in two sections. The lottery application submission phase of the timeline, and then responding to an invitation to move forward. So the first step is an estimated 60 days. And that first step is applications go live on Metro List Boston. You complete a form to request an application, whether you want to complete the lottery application online or you want a paper copy emailed to you or mailed out to you. Once you complete the request for application, you'll receive a link, or a message will come to me to say, hey, I need to send Denisha a paper application at 123 Warren Street in Roxbury. Once the application period closes, and the application period for home ownership is usually about 30 days. Once the last day of the application period comes about, the lottery agent will reach out to applicants to say, hey, Denisha, please review the information that you provided on your lottery application submission to make sure it's correct. Denisha is going to look through that and say, you know what, I didn't apply for a 1-bedroom. I actually applied for a studio, a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and a 3-bedroom. She's also going to say, no, my household income is not $75,000, it's $80,000. So she's going to respond to my email or my letter that I sent to her. And from her response, I'm going to update her lottery application submission. Once I update that, I'm going to send her another email to say, hey, Denisha, I got your information. Please review to make sure that the information that you sent me to update is now correct. Denisha's going to respond and say, yep, it's all good. That's it for Denisha. Denisha would then receive an application number. It's very important to note that your application number is different than your lottery number. And Denisha, I see some, okay, you're handling the chat because I can't do two things at once. Your application number is different than your lottery number. So as you can see, the end of phase 1 is essentially applicants receiving their application number. It's very important that if there's any changes to your mailing address, your phone number, or your email, that you just reach out to the lottery agent, send an email and letting them know, hey, this is my application number. Please update my phone number to XYZ. Please update my email address to XYZ. Because what happens that I've seen in the previous active lotteries, once we start sending out invitations to move forward, emails bounce back. Once emails bounce back, we send it out via United States Postal Service, and the mail gets returned 4 months after we actually sent out that letter. So applicants unfortunately miss the opportunity because we have no way of getting in contact to give you the information and let you know that you've been ranked high on the lottery list for a 2-bedroom. So it's very important after you receive your application number and before you receive notice that the lottery is scheduled, that you keep the lines of communication open as far as your most recent updated contact.
Can I
So,
interject 1 second, Sophia?
yes.
Okay, so if you guys are serious about purchasing a home, do not give the lottery agent your spam email. You know, we all have a spam email, right? Make sure you give them the best email address to contact you. Double and triple check that the email that you entered is accurate, because I had to deal with this just yesterday where someone's like, I didn't receive the information. I read back their email address to them and it was incorrect. They're like, oh, I'm like, it wasn't me. You gave me the wrong information. And I don't know, right? So make sure if you're applying for a lottery that you're giving them your best email. If it is that you're like, I have too many emails in there and you need to create one specific for home ownership, like that's where all of your communication is, you know what helps you stay on track and organized, do that. But make sure you're giving them the correct information, because I've seen a lot of people miss their opportunity because it was in their spam in an email account that they don't check very often, okay? And check your spam folder.
So phase 2 of this timeline is estimated to take about 30 days. And here we are sending you a letter via email or in the mail of the date the actual lottery is going to take place. The City of Boston, the Boston Fair Housing Commission, is the agency that generates the lottery number in a randomized way. During COVID, or since COVID, they were recording the actual randomization of the lottery numbers. I think they've gone back into in-person, where it's essentially you're in a room, you see the screen, and the screen is randomizing these numbers of the applicants to generate an actual lottery number. Once the lottery is complete, the lottery agent receives a list of all the applicants and their associated lottery numbers for the lottery agent to send you another email or a mailing in the mail with your lottery number. That lottery number is different than your application number. Once you receive your lottery number, the lottery agent has to go and work with the Boston Fair Housing Commission to make sure that there are lottery lists created for each unit type, and a unit type is a studio, a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, or a 3-bedroom. So Denisha, in my example, she applied for a studio, a 1, a 2, and a 3. So Denisha is going to be on the lottery list for a studio, the lottery list for a 1-bedroom, for a 2-bedroom, and then for a 3-bedroom. And Denisha is a household of 1. Okay. You have the opportunity to apply for however many unit types you decide, okay, for submission into the lottery. So between step 1 and step 2, we're looking like at 90 days. Then once the actual final lottery list is sorted and ranked means that depending on the home ownership opportunity, there are certain requirements and preferences. Requirements such as you have to be a first-time home buyer, you have to be a City of Boston resident. Some home ownership opportunities state that there's a preference if you are a certified artist with the City of Boston. There's a household preference for units that are 2-bedroom sizes or larger. And what that household preference means is that for every bedroom, there has to be at least one occupant. It has to be at least one household member occupying that bedroom. Going back to my example with Denisha, submits her lottery application. The lottery agent has a sorted and ranked list, and now the lottery agent is reaching out to send out invitations to move forward to all of the high-ranking applicants on the 3-bedroom lottery list. Denisha is within that high-ranking section based on the information she provided at the time she submitted her lottery application. Sophia requests income, 6 months, 3 months of income statement, 6 months of assets, her City of Boston first-time home buyer certificate, the past 3 years of taxes with the W-2s, any business income that Denisha may have earned within the past 2 years, her US residency documentation. Sophia is also asking for a completed home ownership application, which is different from the lottery application that you initially submitted during the application distribution period. Once I go through Denisha's information, I'm like, hey, Denisha, so you only have one person in your household. You are up for a 3-bedroom. Actually, let me rephrase that. When Denisha applied for the lottery, she applied for a unit and her household was 3 people. When she was called for an invitation to move forward, her household decreased to 2 people. Denisha would be lower on the list than Sophia, who also applied for a 3-bedroom, but Sophia has 4 people in her household. So that household preference, Sophia has a higher ranking than Denisha because of the number of people she stated was in her household. It's not until you receive an invitation to move forward, which is in phase 3, that the lottery agent confirms the information that you provided when you self-certified during the lottery application period is still accurate and correct. Okay. So in phase 3, we're sending out invitations to move forward to the high-ranking applicants. I'm requesting required documents as well as sending you an official home ownership application. I gather all of your income and assets and required documents, and I do an income calculation to confirm that you are within the income limits for this particular home ownership opportunity. Once your income and asset determination is complete, I have you come into my office. I go through your entire file. I explain to you how we calculated your income, how we calculated your assets, as well as have you sign additional documents required by the Boston Home Center in order to have a complete file before it goes to them for final review. We also will look at floor plans for you to select your preference on units that you are income and asset eligible for to continue moving on in the lottery process. So this looks like Denisha has an opportunity to come in for a 1-bedroom. She has, because she's in that first tier, she's ranked high and she's in that first batch of invitations to move forward. Denisha has the preference of choosing which units she would want to rank out of all 21 bedrooms that are in this particular home ownership opportunity. She will only have an opportunity to look at her higher ranking units in person, or using floor plans and a virtual tour if the units are still under construction. Denisha will then sign a reservation agreement and provide a $1,000 reservation deposit for one of the units that she has ranked as her preference. Now, some people ask, well, how am I going to give you $1,000 when I haven't actually physically seen the unit because it's still under construction? All applicants have the opportunity to rescind their reservation agreement and have their reservation deposit returned to them if they choose not to enter into a purchase and sale agreement. That typically is determined by the owner, who is the seller. But that is the protocol for the income restricted units. So if you get to the point where you have your reservation agreement, your file goes to the Boston Home Center, they approve you. When they approve you, and construction is finished, we have certificate of occupancy, you are required to see the physical unit before you sign a purchase and sale agreement. So I just want to be clear about that. So I'm talking a little bit about the end of phase 3, which is like 45+ days. And during this period, I'm asking for documentation from you and you're sending it to me and I'm reviewing it. Again, once we get to the point where you've seen the unit, you've seen floor plans, you've ranked your unit, you've reserved a unit, provided your reservation deposit, your file goes to the Boston Home Center for final review and determination. And we're at phase 4. So phase 4 is from the Boston Home Center providing a determination. If they approve you, again, you have roughly about 15-16 days to enter into a purchase and sale agreement, to schedule your homeowner inspection, work with your real estate attorney. If there are any adjustments or requests that need to be made of the buyer of the seller before you sign the purchase and sale agreement and provide your purchase and sale deposit. You guys, your attorney and the seller's attorney, they're talking, they come to an agreement, the purchase and sale agreement is ready to be executed. You execute, you provide the deposit check, and now your executed purchase and sale agreement goes to the bank that you decided to take a mortgage out. and they start their underwriting process. At this time, the lottery agent, I am just waiting to hear from the bank that you're ready to close. We, as the lottery agent, really don't have any other role with the exception of coordinating appraisals of your unit, answering any questions that the mortgage lender may have about the affordability restrictions. But most of the communication, once you sign your purchase and sale agreement, is between your attorney and the seller's attorney and the bank that you decided to go obtain a mortgage from. Roughly, we estimate about 90+ days from the time you accept an invitation to move forward to the time that you potentially may receive keys on the new unit that you just purchased. It's only an estimate. Every applicant has a different scenario. It depends on the applicant's income and asset profile, their ability to get documents in when requested. It depends on the mortgage lender that the applicant decides to go with. It depends on the real estate attorney that the applicant decides to go with. So it just depends. It can go sooner than 90+ days, or it can take a little bit longer. So communication, who needs what? Folks, once you sign a purchase and sale agreement, there's going to be a lot of people asking you for your blood, sweat, and tears. So as the lottery agent, once you receive that invitation to move forward, the city of Boston is asking of information from us, not so much the Boston Home Center, but there's other departments that oversee the actual lottery process that we have to report to during the duration of the first invitation to move forward going out to the last unit being sold. We have questions coming in from the applicant. We have the mortgage lender asking us questions once the purchase and sale agreement is signed. We have real estate attorneys reaching out to us for some information if it is a condo home ownership opportunity. For the applicant, you have your family and friends asking you questions. You have the home inspector, you have your real estate attorney, the appraiser, the city of Boston, if you're applying for down payment assistance. You have the lottery agent again saying, hey, your lender is reaching out to me to say that they haven't been able to get in contact with you. Can you reach out to them? And that has happened. The Boston Home Center has, again, internal departments within the city of Boston that they're communicating with as relates to your transaction. Buyers, real estate attorney, the seller's real estate attorney, the Boston Home Center is having conversations with the applicant as it relates to, as I was saying in the beginning, there's two sides of the Boston Home Center. The side that approves or denies your applicant file, and then the financial assistance program if you are receiving down payment assistance. So all of these people, it becomes really overwhelming as an applicant, and that's normal. But I will say that as my buyers, and I like to personalize it because, you know, we at DVM Housing Partners, we are here in the community. We are trying to get information out. And if you are coming into our office and you're interested, we're trying to do as much as possible to get you to that end result, which is getting keys to your home. So it could be overwhelming, but just continue to breathe in, breathe out, and ask as many questions as possible if something is not clear to you. And at any point within this process, if someone is making you feel uncomfortable because of the questions that you're asking, you need to think twice about giving them your business. Okay. So that concludes my presentation. I want to open it up for questions and guidance that I can give you. This QR code will send you to our DVM Housing Partners Housing Opportunities questionnaire. So folks that provide their email or mailing information. Anytime that we have housing opportunities, whether it be rental or home ownership, we send out communication, letting folks know that, hey, this opportunity is available. These are the dates applications will be distributed. Please reach out to us if you have any questions. And with that, who wants to ask a question?
So I have a few that I wrote down from in the chat, 'cause I've been answering them along the way, but one, someone asked, what constitutes an acceptable household member? So could they count a friend or a cousin as a household member to be part of their household when they're applying, or are there restrictions? Is it limited to children or immediate family?
Nope, your household member are the individuals that you intend to reside in your household. They will have to provide all of their required documentation. So if it's a household member over 18 years of age or older, the income, asset, taxes, US identification, first-time home buyer certificate, they will need to provide that as well. If it's a child or youth, that may be a nephew, a grandson. Certain households have different family compositions. There's documentation that will be requested just to confirm that they are part of your household. That's usually through identified on your taxes, or if there's some type of family probate legal agreement or something, we will have that as a backup. Our application essentially is consistent with what the Boston Home Center requires of most households. There are some households who have different nuances, and that's when we work with the Boston Home Center to get guidance to make sure that, you know, when files go over to them for review, that there's a low percentage that the file will be denied. I hope that answered your question.
If you're not clear still, just put your follow-up question in the chat and we'll clarify some more. The other question was, someone asked, how do you verify where you are in the process? So if you receive your lottery number and it's, let's say, 12,000 or 1,200, like, how do I know where you are if you're, you know, offering units to those at number 100 versus 1,000?
So you can always call and send an email to find out, you know, where you are on the list. That's one option. We don't send, like, there's not an easy way to send a communication out to every single person on the unit type list to let you know, hey, you're ranked number X on the list for a 1-bedroom. We, based on the Boston Fair Housing guidance that we follow, there are a certain number of applicants we can reach out to based on the number of units available to purchase. And we essentially go from the top all the way down in chronological order, sending out invitations to move forward. There is essentially a number of days that folks have to respond to that invitation to move forward to let us know that there is interest. And then we work with you to receive the required documentation. We don't give you 2 years to provide the required documentation, but as the lottery agent, we do work with you. We will provide assistance to folks who need a reasonable accommodation for whatever reasons, to make sure that you have a complete file and you're able to take advantage of this opportunity, especially if you have an invitation to move forward. I can say from a recent homeownership lottery, there were 40 units. There were about 600 applicants who applied. And there were probably like 300 applicants that we really didn't get a chance to reach out to, because out of the 40 units, there were only 5 available for that unit type that they applied for. So what happens, again, You can always call and email to ask what your application status is. Once units are completely sold, we send out a notification letting folks know that all the units have been reserved at this time, and give them resources to apply for other lotteries.
Okay, so I'm answering that in the chat. Someone asked, pretty much, should they only apply for one? If they are a household of two, should they only apply for the 3-bedroom? And I was saying you should apply for all units that you're eligible for because you're entered into each one of those. If you only apply for the 3-bedroom and you're a household of two, you're missing the opportunity to purchase a 2-bedroom unit because you're not even entered in that at all to be considered.
Correct.
And then for the 3-bedroom, how does that ranking work? I remember you said you prioritize larger household size. There's a preference, right, for household size?
Household preference. So an applicant that has a household of 4 during that they've submitted as part of their lottery application is going to be ranked higher than a household of 1 or a household of 2 on that 3-bedroom lottery list. It doesn't mean that the applicant who is just a household of 2 may not have an opportunity, because there might be folks ahead of them that may not want to move forward, may not respond to the invitation to move forward, may be deemed ineligible, which continues to rank them up higher and higher. It does get challenging where there are a limit amount of unit types. And you have like, if there's like 2 units and you have like 600 people on the list, that presents just a realistic challenge.
Mhm. Hopefully that makes sense. So summary, apply for all units that you're eligible for or that you're interested in. Don't take yourself out of an opportunity. Apply for everything, and see if you are able to be selected, because there's nothing else for you to do in a lottery. You apply and you wait to see if your number is called, pretty much, if they contact you to offer you a unit. So apply for all of them. I've seen people where, it's a household of 1 and they applied for the 2-bedroom units. I've seen household of 2 apply for the 3-bedroom units and they were still offered a unit because all of the people who had larger household sizes before them, like Sophia said, either they purchased already or their finances weren't where it was, so they could not actually purchase that unit, or they didn't want the unit. They saw it and said, it doesn't work for my family, right? So don't be discouraged with your lottery number because you never know.
Right.
Okay, let's see. Thank you, Sophia. And then I do know, at least I saw for a lottery that just passed, I'm not sure if it was specific to the city of Boston. They have the list, so the lottery list, everyone's number on a spreadsheet, and they kind of highlight where they are in the lottery process. So people would just check to see kind of if they were denied or if they haven't been contacted yet.
So the Boston Fair Housing Commission has changed the way in which applicants are able to find out what their ranking is. I am getting ready to start a application distribution period, and I believe this new approach to how applicants are able to see where they are on the list is going to be applied for this lottery that I'm preparing for.
Okay.
But in my past experience, it was essentially like the old school way. You call me, you email me, I do a control find of your email and say there are 600 people ahead of you on a 2-bedroom list.
Thank you. And then in terms of assets, I saw that I answered in the chat, but then there are a few more questions. What counts as an asset and what is the asset limit?
So the asset limits are a household cannot exceed 75,000 in assets unless it is a a household that includes a senior, the asset limit is a little bit higher. But again, those things can change based on the year because income limits change and asset limits change as well sometimes. An asset is a checking account, a savings account, a Robinhood account, an IRA, 401k.
Typically a Roth IRA.
Yeah, Roth IRA, 401k, a pension, any annuities, any stocks and investments that you may have, vacation club, travel club.
So I do
Those,
have a follow-up question with what you just said. So I remember asking the city that specifically, and they said the 401k and the 403bs, like the pensions, don't count as an asset. It's just the Roth IRA
yeah.
because you can take that as cash.
So you asked me what an asset was. and I-
Okay, gotcha.
There's the second level to that,
Okay.
which are exempt assets, to which you just refer to retirement accounts. And then there are non-exempt, which are your checking, savings, investment, IRA, cash, Bitcoin accounts, anything for the most part that is not a pension that you're paying into, a 401k, a 403b, and I think there's like IRA retirement or some combination. I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but anything that you're paying into for retirement is considered an exempt asset, and that does not count against the asset limit for your household.
Thank you. Did that answer your question in the chat? Hope it did. I'm trying to see for questions that you can answer or for you specifically. For
And I have to say, no one wins a lottery. Nobody wins a lottery. It's confusing because they're using the term lottery, but it's, in my experience, it's just a somewhat neutral, fair way to establish numbers. There's literally like a randomization of applicant numbers that assign lottery numbers. So no one wins anything. It's just a mechanism used to create a list that is ranked and sorted based on the requirements and the preferences of that particular home ownership opportunity.
yes, so essentially you could be number one in the lottery, which you would think, oh, I won, yay. But then you're not eligible because maybe your income wasn't high enough, or you said you were a household of 3, and like Sophia said, now you're a household of 1, so you're not eligible for that unit. So it's not where you win and it's yours. They just rank you and they go according to that after. Okay, for an accessible unit, how does one qualify, or how do you become eligible for an accessible unit?
So at the time of the lottery application submission, there is a question that says, are you requesting an accessible unit? If so, what type? A mobility unit or a unit for hearing, hard of hearing, or both. Again, that applicants are self-certifying their income, their assets, if they need an accessible unit or not. At the time that you receive an invitation to move forward, if you're on the ADA or the accessibility list for a 1-bedroom, based on what you provided at the time you submitted your lottery application, the lottery agent is going to request documentation that's required to prove the disability or the need to have the unit, the accessible unit. And that's essentially a letter from your medical provider stating that there is a need for this type of accessible unit. And that is the documentation that's required.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. In the chat, they asked, is it better, this will be a question I can answer and you can add to it. Is it better to speak with a lender first to see how much you qualify for? I'd hate to go through the whole process to find out I don't get approved. So I would say the first thing you should do is make sure you're mortgage ready, right? So do you have the credit score? Most lenders, and for these programs to access the down payment assistance and the first time home buyer programs, you need a minimum of a 640 credit score. If you're buying a multifamily, you need a 660 credit score. So you need to make sure your credit is where it needs to be. You need to have the minimum down payment. So we had that chart with all of the numbers. So you need to make sure you have money saved and it matches the minimum, or that you will have access to it by the time you close, so that you have that. And you need to make sure that your debt to income ratio is within what the lenders want them to be. Okay, and generally it needs to be below 38% of your gross income. So that's housing costs plus all your debt, right? Making sure that it's not high. So if you know you need to work on your credit or you have really high debt, those are things you want to address before you start the pre-approval process, because we already know what lenders are looking for. If you register to take a first-time homebuyers class, you're entitled to a free counseling session. So you can meet with a counselor and they can map out specific to you kind of what you need to work on before you go talk to a lender. Okay. If you decide you want to just talk to the lender from the beginning, let them know your situation, let them know what your credit score is, or show them your FICO credit score, and just have a conversation with them so they can give you a range. Because if they have to give you a real pre-approval, they will need to pull your credit, and it will lower your credit score. So if you're not actively looking to buy a house, I wouldn't have people pulling your credit. Hopefully that answers your question. So some lotteries require you to have a pre-approval in order to submit an application. Other lotteries, I think specifically like the city of Boston, they don't require a pre-approval to apply. You would need a pre-approval once you're selected.
So I'll rephrase that.
Okay.
You're partially correct. You don't need a pre-approval when you are submitting the application, the lottery application. You will need your pre-approval once you receive an invitation to move forward, and it lists all the required documents needed to complete your file.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, wait, let me read. Okay, let me see what else here. When you purchase a lottery home, do you own the land and the building, or the home, the unit, or do you just own the home?
You own what is identified as part of the deed in the survey. So there's a legal description that's included in the purchase and sale agreement that gives you direction, square footage of the lot that you are purchasing.
Hopefully that clarified. So it depends on what they outline in the deed. Okay, so there's also a difference between you're purchasing the property. So there's something called a land trust where you could purchase the house. So technically you own the house, but you don't own the land. And I think that's what you're asking. That's a little bit different, and it is clearly outlined. And they inform you of that in the lottery as well, that the property is in a land trust. So you own the property, the house itself, but the land is not owned by you. Okay, so that's a different structure. If you're buying the home that is being built, is there an opportunity to choose the colors and the finishes in a lottery home?
It depends on that particular lottery. Some lotteries give you the opportunity to make those selections, some don't.
I will say most of them do not. They create, again, because everything was with a budget, right? So they give you the base and then you get to customize once you become the owner. Let's see. Debt does include student loans. So I will send you guys a link. Hopefully it's not too late. the 30th is the last day, but that, I think, when is the 30th? Is that Monday or is that this weekend? Sunday. So
Mm-hmm.
I think they're open on the weekends, but I'm not sure. I'll send you the link for a company or a nonprofit that's helping people with student loans to identify if you're eligible for student loan forgiveness. We've seen a lot of people get their loans forgiven or modified where it's based on their income. So their payments are lower, which helps you with your debt to income ratio so that you can qualify for a mortgage. So the follow-up to this presentation, you guys will get an email with a lot of links and instructions on things to do. That one specifically with student loans, there's a hard deadline on that.
Can you
So
send me that? 'Cause I don't want to pay my student loans.
why didn't you tell me this but you've done seen me market this for how long? So yes, I will send the information for student loans because June 30th is the cutoff for that. They will still forgive student loans after that, but there was a one-time waiver for the past year and a half that allowed more people to get their student loans forgiven than will happen on July 1st. It's going to change a little bit. What happens if you don't have credit, Sophia?
You are not able to move forward to purchase. So the slide that I had with who's like, what are you asking for? Who's the communication slide? Like there are at minimum 3 different entities that have a similar process, but they're different. So if you can provide a pre-approval is different than an actual loan commitment. To qualify for the lottery, prior to your file going to the Boston Home Center, it is a requirement to have a valid pre-approval letter. There have been buyers who've gotten through the Boston Home Center approval process and they could not get a loan commitment for whatever reason, and they had to pull out. So although you were approved for the actual lottery to officially move forward to purchase the unit, buyers aren't able to actually get a loan to purchase the unit. And the lottery agent doesn't have anything or any influence on that particular process.
So like I said before, you want to make sure oh, sorry about that. That's me. You want to make sure that you are financially prepared for homeownership before you get to that stage, right? So does that mean you don't apply for lotteries? No, because based on Sophia's timeline, I saw at least 5 or 6 months there, right? Because I saw 45 plus 45, that's 90 days already. That's 3 months. I saw a couple 30s in there. So we're looking at 5 to 6 months is the process. It's not fast at all. That is more than enough time for some of you, depending on your situation, to fix things, right? So if your credit is not where it needs to be, there's time to fix it. If you don't have enough saved, there's time to save. So apply for everything. Don't wait till you're perfect, right? But make sure you're actively working on those things while you're waiting. Don't passively wait, actively wait, okay? So we're looking at 60 plus 90 plus, so 90 plus 90, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
A long time.
And don't feel as though you have to have every single required document in hand before you send it over. Send stuff as you have it, you
Right.
know?
Communication.
Yes, yes.
In here, they said single people are often overlooked for lotteries. They don't want a 1-bedroom, they want a 2-bedroom, but they're always overlooked because the larger household size gets a preference. So comment, but what I've seen, I think it depends on the lottery, right, Sophia? Because I've seen lotteries where they did not put a household preference on a 2-bedroom. It started on the 3-bedroom unit. So it depends on the lottery where that applies. So for example, guys, so Olmsted Green, that they're going through that process right now. So that lottery has passed, but there was not a household preference or a household size preference for the 2-bedroom unit. So you could be a single person, a 1-person household, and apply for a 2-bedroom, and you could get that. Whether you were number 1 or 50, once they contacted you, there was no special ranking there. Okay, so it depends on the lottery. They always specify if there's a household preference or not. And for that one, they did not have a household preference for the 2-bedroom. Just wanted to make that clear. And then for your FICO score, do you need to have credit to purchase a home? You don't need to have credit to purchase a home, but you do need to have proof or demonstrated proof that you pay things on time. So it's called alternative credit options. That depends on the lender, what they want to see. So it might be 2 years of on-time rental payments. If you have gym memberships, they want to see that you've been paying that on time, never late. If you miss one payment or you're late one time, it doesn't count. So they're very specific in terms of alternative ways to help you qualify if you have no credit at all. If you have bad credit, you just have to fix it. Okay. Can you share some first-time homebuyer workshops? Yes. So after this meeting, I'm going to share with you guys, you're going to receive an email with links to register for first-time homebuyer classes. Once you take that class, you're also going to be informed. It's an 8-hour class. Once you complete that class, you'll be informed of the various down payment assistance programs that are available. I'm also working on a list kind of statewide, so depending on where you want to buy, all the different cities and towns that have their own down payment assistance, just so you are aware of what's out there. So you guys will receive that after this meeting. So they asked here, if your income changes while you own the home, are you still eligible to keep the home? Yes, you are. Like I said before, the day you close is the day they start checking on you. They don't care about if you win $1 million after. Okay, they do care if you turn it into a rental property. Okay, so you have to live there. They don't care about your income. Sophia, what happens if I make over? So I was eligible when I applied. Then I'm excited for my raises and my bonuses, but they all kicked in before I could close on this unit. And now I'm over income. What happens then? I qualified before, but now I'm a little over.
That is determined on a case-by-case basis, because there are certain, like, you're saying you executed a purchase and sale agreement and then your income increase.
Yep. My
So
bonus hit my bank account right then.
yeah,
Literally.
I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
I would say it's a case-by-case basis. Thinking of a previous lottery where that happened, I believe there was some, I don't know, because bonuses, it depends on how often the bonuses are received. A raise is a raise, but if it's like a bonuses typically, if they are not guaranteed, they typically don't get counted towards your household income. But there's documentation that's required from your employer to back that up. Yeah, I can't think off the top of my head an instance where a buyer's income increased after they signed a purchase and sale agreement and before they received keys. I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
haven't found that much.
I've heard, so the rumor, so I don't know this to be fact, guys,
And
is
don't
that,
say it.
yeah,
Don't.
no, I'm saying, but what we've done is once you should know, right? They should inform you ahead of time if you are going to get a raise or not, right? Somehow they don't just, it doesn't just show up in your bank account. You're gonna know, you're gonna be notified. It's working with your employer to figure out, okay, when am I closing? You're gonna talk to your lottery agent and everyone on this home buying team, and then talk to your employer, like, can I postpone this? Because we've had to do that with people before, or their bonuses. Can I not have this right now? Or if you're working overtime, stop, right? Until you close on the property, because we weren't sure what the hard cutoff was, and then you have to walk away from it, okay? So these are pre-planning things that you can work on with your housing counselor to make sure that you'll be okay.
The housing counselor is definitely the person that can assist you with that.
Yeah. So I met with someone a couple weeks ago and he was working a lot of overtime. I'm like, you're going to be over income, so you need to stop. He's like, but I'm trying to save. I'm like, we need to find another way to save. If you're trying to purchase and you want all this down payment money, we need to cut down on the hours so you meet the income eligibility for it. Okay. Let me go back up. I want to make sure I answer questions. I did that. Who actually owns the condo building? Okay, so you own your unit, so walls in. And then the association is responsible for walls out, which means everyone has a percent ownership in the entire building, if that makes sense. And that's why you pay condo fees to help maintain the outside of your unit, because you don't want to just have yours looking great and outside has trash, it's falling apart. You pay condo fees and condo dues to help maintain the property, to make sure it remains in great condition. So what becomes important when you're buying a condo is looking into the association to make sure they are quality and they're doing their job as best they can. So if it's well managed, you should have no issue when you're paying your condo fees. If you have bad credit, you're not going to get a pre-approval. So in summary, you need to make sure your credit is at least a 640. You need to make sure you don't have a lot of debt. We can help you figure out what that is. And you need to make sure you have savings. Okay. Are there ways to purchase with a lower credit score? Yes. Are they more expensive? Yes. So it makes sense to take the time to improve your credit score so that you can purchase and take advantage of all of the money and down payment assistance that is available to you. Income requirements are always based on your gross income, not on your net. And that I asked a question about that. I'm like, well, why? Because we live on our net. So I will tell you, the banks base everything on your gross, but you live on your net. So no matter what they say, you need to make sure you can still afford the house and the monthly payments, because what they base it on is obviously more than what you bring home every month. So you need to make sure you'll be okay. Why do they base it on your gross? Because that standardizes it across for everyone, right? Because if you're putting more into your retirement fund, or your health insurance is higher, or you have all these other obligations, your car payment's higher, right? That's not their responsibility to try to calculate and figure it out. So they go off of the gross, so everyone has the same baseline, because everything else is somewhat within your control.
And from the lottery agent perspective, gross rent is used based on the guidance that's provided from the mayor's office of housing and the home ownership, the neighborhood initiative, and the neighborhood housing initiative program, which allows first-time home buyers to purchase.
Okay, what if you don't live in the city of Boston, but you work in the city of Boston? Can you still be qualified or eligible?
So yes, and so there typically is a Boston list. Again, there's a preference to have a certain percentage of city of Boston residents. Once that list is exhausted, there's a general list that includes essentially everyone, whether you live in Boston or you live outside of Boston, where non-Boston residents can have the opportunity. There's also opportunities for non-Boston residents to purchase if housing opportunities are advertised on a first come, first served basis, meaning that the lottery agent has exhausted the lottery list and now they still have some units available. They will go and market, and anyone who has a complete package can take advantage of that opportunity on a first come, first served basis.
Apply for everything. In summary, that's what I tell everyone: apply for everything, because you don't know when they will exhaust a list or not. You can't foretell the future, so apply for everything. even if you're applying for units that are outside of Boston. So tonight's presentation was based on the city of Boston because DVM mostly focuses on Boston lotteries, but the process is pretty much the same no matter where you're purchasing, whether it's in Newton, it's in Brockton, the process of the lottery process is similar. One difference would be some require a pre-approval and others do not, but they will make it very clear in that application period what they require, so you'll know at that time. In the chat, someone asked what's the difference between interest rate and market rate. So interest rate is the interest that you're going to pay on that home. So you're purchasing it at $300,000. The bank's going to charge you, let's say, 4 or 5% interest on it. You're going to be paying that throughout the life of the loan. So you're at the end, you're not paying 300,000. You're going to be paying principal plus interest. Market rate is the price. So we have affordable income restricted properties. There's a certain price point that's set for those. And then market rate is open to everyone to apply. Whether you make $1 million or you make $50,000, market rate is for everyone to apply to. So that's more to do with a housing price as opposed to the interest rate is what you are going to pay on that property. The interest rate is not different depending on the type of home, that it's just something that is determined by the market. So everyone, I would say everyone will have the same interest rate. Depending on the loan product or the program that you are a part of will determine your interest rate in addition to the market. That has nothing to do with the house. It has to do with the financing of the house. Other questions here that I see that I had from before. Can you use the equity from your home to purchase another home? If you are selling, and so you get the proceeds from that, you can utilize it to purchase another home. If you are going to pull equity from your house, your deed restricted property, I know that there are restrictions. I don't know what they are exactly, but there are restrictions on that and a cap in terms of how much they will allow you to utilize. What I'm not sure of is if they limit what you're going to use those funds for. And again, it needs to be owner occupied. So if you're going to use it to buy another home, that means you're no longer owner occupying it. So they're going to ask you to sell. I think I've answered every question for the most part. If not, if you can put it back in the chat, I'll scroll back up. Gross gross income is a national standard. So it's not a city of Boston standard. Anywhere you're buying across the United States, that again, they had to find a way to standardize it. And that's how they chose to do it. So what we work with people on is making sure you are in the best financial position to purchase a home. We understand that some people earn higher than others, and that's exactly why different municipalities build these affordable income restricted properties, so that because you make $70,000, you still have an opportunity to own, and you don't have to compete with the person who makes $200,000 for a house, right? So they're making these available to you. The reason why they hold a lottery is to keep it fair. So it's not, I'm holding a lottery and all of my cousins and my siblings are eligible and I just sell them all the units, right? That would be unfair. So the only way for them to keep it fair is to make sure that it's a lottery so that everyone has an equal and fair chance of being selected or ranked to purchase a unit. Okay, so yes, someone reminded me and I'm going back in here. Thank you, Martha. So I wanted to do this first. Hold on. Because I think it's important to state, and then I'll show you an example. So, because I don't want to keep Sophia. Are you staying till the end, Sophia? Or do you need to leave, my dear? I want to be considerate of your time.
If there are any more questions.
Are there any other questions specific for Sophia? So let me stop sharing to make sure she answers all of your questions, and then I'll do all the extra stuff with you guys.
If you don't have any, if you can't think about it right now, I did put my contact information in the chat for folks to reach out to me.
Perfect. If you can email that to me as well, Sophia, I will send it out. So everyone who registered, so you came through Eventbrite, you will receive an email from Eventbrite with Sophia's contact information, with the replay, and then with links if you need to take the first time homebuyers class, and a few other things that I'll go over tonight. So I don't see any other questions for Sophia. Thank you so much, Sophia.
You're
Herman,
welcome.
I already explained that to you in the chat. It's the same. Thank you so much, Sophia. Have a good
Thanks,
evening.
guys. Have a good night.
Okay, guys, so we're talking about the income restricted properties, and I think a lot of people shy away from them because they say, well, I don't get to build wealth. I don't get, like, I feel like I'm being robbed and they're taking advantage of me. And I think it's all in perspective of how you look at things, honestly, because you have to purchase what works for you, right? If it is that you absolutely don't want any restrictions, then your option or your alternative is to purchase a market rate unit, right? That now requires you, in most cases, to earn the income required to purchase that, right? So it might be you need to make more money. So you can get a pre-approval high enough. If you can, absolutely go purchase a market rate unit, right? But if that's not an option for you, the only alternative is to buy an affordable income restricted property, move further outside of where you are. So you may have to live in a different city or town that may be further away, which is not bad. Again, it depends on your situation and what sacrifices you're willing to make. So that's your second option. First option, you purchase an income restricted property. Second, you purchase a market rate further out, right? Third option is you keep renting until you can find the perfect home that you want. I tell people in this market and just understanding where we are, the times, and how aggressive real estate is, get in where you fit in, right? So consider this your first home, not your forever home. So you're making strategic decisions and planning on what this looks like for you and for your family, right? So yes, I may not want to buy a 1 bedroom or a 2 bedroom right now because I want to have a family 5, 10 years down the line. So I just want to get the home with the 3 or the 4 bedrooms. If I can't afford that now, right? But it's cheaper for me to own than it is to rent. Right now, if I were to purchase a 1 bedroom or a 2 bedroom, personally, I would purchase what I could afford right now. So I can afford the 1 bedroom or the 2 bedroom. It works for me. I'm going to make that sacrifice because what I'm saving, right, is what I'm going to set aside into a high yield savings account, invested in the stocks so that it can grow so that I'll have more money to buy the house that I really want in the future. It's just a change in perspective of how to make it work. For one of the projects I worked on, I saw someone pass on a lottery home because they didn't want the 1 bedroom, even though it was going to save them $600 a month, right? It was $600 cheaper than what they were paying for rent at the time. And they passed on it because they wanted a 2 bedroom. They didn't want the 1 bedroom. Well, now the market has changed again where they can't afford to buy where they wanted to buy. They missed that opportunity and their rent went up. So now they're paying $1,000 more than what they would have been paying if they purchased that 1 bedroom at the time. That's $12,000 a year that they could have been saving to purchase the next house in the future, right? Are they upset about that? Probably, because the market's really competitive right now. It's hard for them to purchase. They could have been saving money had they purchased then. So I'm a big believer in looking at where you are now and just planning out. It's like if you know you're going to have a family in 2 years, then you probably don't want to buy the 1 bedroom. That's not going to make too much sense. But if you know that you don't need that for the next 5 years or so, look at your life and your situation and try to find what makes sense to take advantage of the opportunity now, because you can leverage it to save $12,000 a year, right? To save $6,000 a year so that you can build up to buy the next house that you want. Like I said, with the income restricted properties, they don't cap your earning potential. So the day after you close, go back to college, go back to school if you want to earn a degree to get a higher paying job. Take the promotion. You can switch jobs at that point because you already own the asset, right? So you just have to income qualify to purchase, but once you own it, sky's the limit, right? So leverage that. It's our income that determines our wealth, right? So how much money can I save, right? Whether it's saving it just from the property or in addition, like my income, not spending it, putting that and setting it aside. okay? You can focus on your goals, right? So do you want to open a business? If you can stabilize your housing costs, so now I know for my, I'll say a 2-bedroom, I'm paying $2,000 a month. Whereas if I were renting, I'd be paying $2,800 a month. I'm saving $800. What could I do with that? Could I start a business? Could I pay off my student loan debt? Right? Could I pay off some debt? Could I invest more aggressively in the market? It opens up a lot of opportunities for you. And I don't want people missing it because of what other people are saying. You have to do what makes sense for you and for your goals and for your family. You can still purchase other properties. So we have people who they live in the affordable unit because it's in the location that they want, right? It's in the city, it's close to downtown, it works, but they saved and then they bought investment property elsewhere. It makes that possible because now you can save more aggressively for the next property. So again, just trying to give perspective in terms of wealth creation and how you can leverage a deed restricted, income restricted property to still build wealth. Don't let people tell you that you can't and it's capped, right? It's all here. How can you be creative and leverage this opportunity so that you can still build wealth? I'm going to read the chat for a moment and then I'll keep going. Tomorrow. Okay, so the grants, I do not know the answer for that question. I know you do need to have a social security number. So I don't think you need to be a citizen. You can be a permanent resident and be able to purchase. I'm not sure if you're on like a work visa, if that qualifies. So that will be something you would have to ask a loan officer or a lender to see what they say. One of the programs, so the city couldn't be with us tonight, but I did want to go over kind of, they have their own down payment assistance program specific to the city of Boston. It is for Boston residents or those who work in the city of Boston. So maybe you live in Brockton or you live in Attleboro, but you work in Boston, then you are eligible for their down payment assistance program, where they're giving you 5% of the purchase price plus closing costs. So they will cover that for you. You are responsible for bringing 1.5% of the purchase price, okay? So you bring 1.5%, they'll give you 5%, so that's a total of 6.5% down that you're going to be putting on whatever property you buy in the city of Boston. It is up to $50,000 if you earn, if you're under 100% area median income, and then if you make over that, up to 135% area median income, the max would be $35,000. So there's money out there. This is specific to the city of Boston, but there are at least 20 other towns that I've researched thus far in Massachusetts that have their own version of down payment assistance. It ranges. I've seen $5,000, I've seen $2,500, I've seen $17,000. It varies by town in terms of what they have to offer. Okay. We talked about this before, what lenders require. Focus on your credit. If you know you do not have a minimum 640 credit score, focus on improving your credit. The benefits far outweigh for you to spend the time to improve your credit than rushing to go get a pre-approval with a 500 or a 580 credit score. Like, spend the time to improve it. You're going to be very thankful that you did. You want to make sure you're paying down your debt. If you need help figuring out what your debt to income ratio is, register for your first time homebuyers class so that you can meet with a counselor and figure out what that number is. We also have, and you guys will get a link to that after this meeting. We have what's called our homebuyer support group, where we meet every first and third Monday of the month. So we're actually going to be meeting this upcoming Monday. And we go over these things. So helping you figure out your budget, helping you figure out how to repair your credit yourself. You don't have to pay someone to do that. Ooh, can you mute yourself, please? So we encourage you, we welcome you to join us. Again, we meet every first and third Monday. You don't have to come every month, but we encourage you to come to learn some strategies so that you can pay off your debt, You can improve your credit. We give you the dispute letters for you to send out. We give you homework to make sure that you're staying on task. So we encourage you to join. So I'll send out the link for you guys to join because we're meeting this upcoming Monday from 6 to 8 p.m. We'll also send out the link for you guys to join our savings challenge to help you save. Again, just trying to make it fun and to help you just be diligent with saving